What's up, ladies? All right, let's talk through the process of reverse dieting carbohydrate. This has been a question in the group of women asking, like, how do I do this? And right, so many of you are getting the macro calculator, and oftentimes the carbs are way higher than you're used to. So we're going to talk through how to reverse diet this process. Now, why do we want to increase carbohydrate, right? Why, as women who lift weights? So if you do not lift weights, this video is not for you, right? I educate women who are lifting weights. And so all the information and education coming your way is specifically for women who lift weights. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so why would we want to increase carbohydrate, right? So protein's purpose and function is to keep your muscle tissue and repair your muscle tissue. Carbohydrates' main purpose and function is our primary fuel source for our brain, our primary fuel source for weightlifting, and let me put it this way. So when you're lifting weights, your body needs a lot of carbohydrate to have the energy to train, right? And so the more carbohydrate you have, the more muscle you're able to build because you have more energy in the gym to break those muscles down, and then the protein comes and repairs it, okay? So if you have excess, if you're eating really high protein and not enough carbohydrate and you're lifting weights, your body will actually convert your precious protein into glucose, which is ridiculous because why not just eat the carbohydrate to create a more efficient system for your body to have that glucose and glycogen ready to build muscle mass. So it's way smarter if you're lifting weights and want to build muscle to have as much carbohydrate as possible as it creates the most efficient environment to create muscle mass, okay? So that is why we would want to increase carb and keep protein at the right level. I did an entire protein research review of what is the healthiest amount of protein for women who lift weights. If you want that, just comment protein research and I'll tag you in that resource. But basically, about 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram body mass is a great space to be. If you're still going by 1 pound of protein 1 gram of protein per pound of body mass, it's outdated, it's very high. Get your hands on the protein research. And then typically we do moderate to low fat, keeping it in a very safe range, but we really want as much space as possible in the carbohydrates to, again, build that muscle mass. So fat is, I personally do about 0.75 grams of fat per kilogram body mass, but you can go as low as 0.5 and stay in a healthy range. Okay, so step number 1 to reversing your carbohydrates, do it slowly, do it very slowly. If you're doing it on your own, I would recommend just increasing by 20 grams every 3 weeks, nice and slow. We personally increase our clients when we're doing reverse diet with carbohydrates. We typically increase them by about 35 grams every 2 to 4-ish weeks, depending on how she's responding, how compliant she is, that type of thing. But again, if you're doing it on your own, it's safer to do less because there's a lot of factors that you may not know to look for. And so there'll be too many emotional reactions to it. And I'll explain that in just a second. Okay. So yeah, if you're doing it yourself, do 20 grams of carb increase every 3 weeks, but you must be compliant in your macros. So for Queens of Iron, if you're over or under 0 to 5 grams for each macro at the end of the day, that's a compliant day. If you're not compliant, you can't really know what those macros are doing for your body. And so if any changes happen, you can't really pinpoint it to the increase in carb because you weren't compliant, right? And so compliance is so vital. So you can really understand how's my body responding to this increased carbohydrate. Okay. Really monitor this. I find this is one of the biggest problems. Well, the biggest problems when women come to us is they think they're compliant, but actually they're not at all. So really just monitor your compliance. It's so key. Okay, so increasing carbohydrate can sometimes increase water retention, right? If you're eating maybe not as high quality carb, or if you're filling it with bread, stuff like that, your insulin can go up, which means, which increases the sodium that your body holds on to, which is going to increase more water retention. So the scale's going to go up. An emotional response would be, I just increased carbohydrate and I'm gaining weight. What is going on? Valid response, right? Freaking out. take your measurements. We do waist, low belly, hips / glutes, and your thigh. Measurements show a way more accurate picture than the scale does because of that fluid retention. Stress can cause the scale to jump up. So make sure you're tracking something other than the scale. But just because the scale is going up when you're increasing carb, it doesn't mean you're gaining fat. It doesn't mean you're having a poor reaction. It's just sometimes that happens. Increased carbs cause increased water retention. Totally normal. A way to avoid this is really focus on high quality carbs. Fill it with high quality carbs, higher fiber carbs, fruits, vegetables. Here's a list of some of them. Barley, artichoke heart, chia, flax, oats, salsa. Avocado is a fat, but it does have good fiber. Corn tortillas, right? Edamame pasta. So find carbohydrates, beans, right? Find carbohydrates that do have that higher fiber content. So you're seeing less of the water retention because you're not going to have the insulin spikes. Okay, cool. Mia. Yeah, I totally feel like I'm retaining water since eating more carbs. I struggle with trusting the carb. Doing it on your own makes it really challenging because it's like there's so many factors that you may not be knowing to look for. And so it's like having part of the information. And so, yeah, I can understand why it would feel scary to trust that. Take your measurements. Measurements, again, show a way truer picture. But you also need to know how to take your measurements and get consistent in how you're measuring, not pulling too tight, right? Measuring the same spot. Consistency is everything, ladies. Measure first thing in the morning, before you eat, before you drink, after the bathroom. So again, it's consistent data. We want consistent data. Take pictures in the same outfit, the same lighting, right? So you can really see. How do your clothes fit? That's a big thing. Okay, beautiful. Great. Oh yeah. And this is why tracking for about 3 weeks or so is so vital, because your body needs time to regulate and your body needs time to learn how to process and use those extra carbs. Okay. So give it time, allow your body to learn and adjust. Make sure you're balancing and spacing your food out. Don't eat 100 grams of carb in one sitting unless you have over 400 grams of carb per day. I would not recommend eating more than, honestly, I would probably not recommend eating, this can get dicey. It's so different, but a good rule of thumb is if you're eating 4 times a day, take all your macros, but let's say carbs, divide it by 4 and have that as a meal goal. If you're eating these huge, massive meals in one sitting, you may be gaining fat even though you're complying in your macros, because if you're eating this massive meal, your body's like, I don't know what to do with all this food. I'm going to store it as fat because I don't need it, right? So it's so important to have those balanced and spaced meals, also to just give your body energy throughout the day and create a really efficient metabolism. So a lot of benefits there. Okay, great. Now, let's see. Okay, so step number 2. So step number 1 was increase nice and slow. Step number 2 is what should you expect, right? So first week after you increase your carbs, if you are compliant, you can possibly expect measurements and weight to go up. That's okay. Give it another week or 2. By the 3rd week, for sure, you should be seeing normal drops if you're in a deficit. For us, a normal drop with compliance is 1 to 1.5 pound loss. Granted, the scale fluctuates, so this isn't like a hard data point. But what we do like to see is 0.5 centimeter drop in 2 to 3 areas. So waist, low belly, hips, we do upper thigh and mid thigh, but I think I'm going to change it to bust instead of mid thigh. But anyway, so yeah, 2 to 3 drops each week with compliance. If you're not seeing those drops with compliance, that's key, then something might need to change. Maybe more steps, maybe food quality, maybe change in meal balance and spacing. Maybe you need to push a little harder on your lifts, right? There's just minor tweaks that may need to be adjusted. And it may not need to be adjusted in your macros. It may just need to be adjusted in your daily activity. Great. Okay, so step number 3. How do you know when to stop? How the heck do you know when to stop, right? How many carbs are you trying to get to? So this is definitely going to depend on what's your goal. Is your goal to cut fat and weight and gain muscle for all of us, right? So if your goal is to lose weight and fat, you want to be in a deficit. You're in a fat loss phase. If you want to maintain weight on the scale, but still become a more fit version of you, lose fat and gain muscle, That's maintenance calories. The scale would stay the same. A surplus is when you want to gain weight and muscle. All three, you're gaining muscle, right? A surplus is when you want to gain weight on the scale. Okay. So if your goal is to continue to shed fat and continue to shed weight, you want to be looking for, well, for us, the healthy and sustainable rate of loss is, like I said, the 1 to 1.5 pound fat loss per week. But again, like I said, the scale fluctuates, so we go by measurements. So 2 to 3.5 centimeter measurement drops per week. Okay, so 1.5 across the board is phenomenal. It doesn't have to be perfect every time, because if you're super stressed, things might be up a little bit. That's okay. This next week, let's focus on lowering stress. Let's focus a little bit more on recovery and care, so then we can put ourselves, our body, our mind in a position to shed that fat, right? So again, there's so many factors. So if you are compliant, you're wanting to lose fat, lose weight, you're compliant, truly compliant, and you're losing no measurements, or like 0.5 in one area every 2 weeks, you're closer to maintenance than you are to a healthy rate of loss, meaning you can go into a little bit more of a deficit to lose weight a little bit faster, but not fast in a way of we're rushing, we're doing a quick fix, not like that, but you have space to go into a healthy deficit. In maintenance, what it typically looks like is the scale may fluctuate just a little bit, right? Like 0.2 to maybe 0.8, maybe a little more than a woman. Measurements drop. What I've seen is about every 3 to 5 weeks, typically 4 measurements are dropping in maintenance. So you're becoming a more fit version of yourself, staying the same weight because you're growing beautiful muscle mass, right? In surplus, we have clients gain 1 pound per month. So it's nice and slow. So they're not gaining a bunch of excess fat, but they're just stacking on that muscle mass. It's beautiful. So they don't have to go through as much of an uncomfortable phase increasing weight. We can just focus on increasing muscle. So yeah, so basically I said, how do you know if you've hit maintenance? And it's where your weight is staying the same, measurements are creeping down, but they should still be dropping down, okay? So if your measurements are not dropping, then either you're not compliant, or it's not the right macros for you, or your lifting program needs to be adjusted. But I need to get in the habit of that, right? We're a team of trainers now, which is so much better for our clients. It's awesome. So much more support. But I've been an for 12 years. And so now it's like, oh, we have all these trainers. So I'm getting in the habit of we. Now I just lost my train of thought. What I was even just talking about. We were talking about measurements. Oh, I can't remember, ladies. I apologize. If someone caught what I was just about to say, please tell me. I really wanted to share this. I really feel like it was with measurements. I can't remember. Okay. Well, sorry about that. Maybe I'll remember if I watch this back. So what questions do you guys have? Is that making sense of how to reverse your carbs up? Do you know how much you should be going to? Like, did that bring clarity? Let me know how you're feeling after tuning in and hearing that, so I can just answer any confusing pieces if there are any, bring more clarity. I'll stand here for just a couple minutes to see if you guys need any more help. Never make decisions emotionally. That is why that is one of the reasons, or hold on, should I say? That is like the number one reason I think that people just can't do this on their own, or shouldn't really do this on their own, because you're too close, right? There's too much emotion involved. So you don't have that objective view to say, no, we're not changing anything. It was just this, and this. And then it's like, oh, okay, great. Whereas usually if you're doing it by yourself, you slash calories, you change macros, you change this, you change that. And so it doesn't have space or time to get steady. It's always just up and down, bouncing all around. I wasn't compliant, then I was, then I wasn't, then I was. So there's just so much ups and downs, and that can get exhausting for women, right? And so that's why it's vital to have that support team by your side. Okay, cool. So Mia, you said, is it Maya or Mia? I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I think it's Mia, right? So if I use the Queens of Iron macros and selected fat loss, is that considered a cutting phase? Yeah, exactly. That is a cutting phase. I'm going to change that, ladies. Oh, no, I think it says weight loss. I think it says weight loss, but yeah, that is cutting. Yeah, Brittany says, are your carbs salty? Could be water retention. Yeah, for sure. And someone said, I can't see your name. I go live on StreamYard, so you just have to grant them access. But yeah, the ups and downs make it really challenging. And so it's really important to get compliant, not in a restrictive way, but in a way where you're then stacking habits. You're learning, you're creating a rhythm. I had a meeting with a client today, and I was like, how are you doing with everything? She's seen phenomenal results. She's very compliant, very hardworking. And she's like, oh yeah, this is just kind of normal now. This is just like my daily habit. It's like nothing anymore. I'm just along for the journey. I'm like, exactly. That's exactly where you should be. That's a really, really good space to be. Do the boring work. The lifelong changes happen in the boring work. Cool. Okay, ladies, great. Have a wonderful day. Let me know any questions you have, or on the replay if you have questions. Just comment below and I will come in and answer them. I'm gonna answer this really quickly. She says, but I do salt my food like rice, so it could be it. It could be it, yeah. Or you may just I mean, how compliant are you throughout the week, each day? And then how are you balancing your food? And you know, it's like how many grams of carb are you having in each meal? Stuff like that. Give it time, give yourself time, all that kind of stuff. Beautiful ladies. Okay, have a wonderful day. Thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you later. You're wonderful.